All right.
I don't know what the temperature is supposed to be.
Okay. So we are here again. I'll be on here till 6:30. 30 and there are some sessions that I have overdue for everybody. I did want to get a session in about get the health again, the details of health. And it's funny because it's been ironic because then it's been like I actually had to teach my training sessions under injury training because I've been injured this week, and getting better. But I want to take everybody's questions, but know that I'm definitely leaning towards something like a broad health base, physical, diet, um, the protocol. We'll do that one first. We'll do that one first um, during the week because I need to get. I want to get some more builds out there with everybody. All right. Anybody, as always, though, if you have any questions, details, where you're at in 120, questions that you have, serious piece, substance piece, let me know where you're at. Okay, let me.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it. Yeah, yes. Give it a try today, see how.
Yeah, substance. That I'm working on that thing this week. I'm working on that thing this week. As you can see, definitely all of January was about pushing this reel of 22 21 book, the reel of 21 2021 2020 book. So I didn't get to finish that, but I'm gonna send that out to you. I got some ideas already, so it'll be I think it'll be good, you know. But I haven't forgot what you got. Um, you know, like I keep saying, though, we're still establishing how we do an online class, and this is different than anything else that's ever been, ever been taught. You know what I'm saying? Because it isn't a physical art. So let's say like when I teach students over the Zoom, I always know that whatever I'm teaching them, you know, is something that they're gonna have to use. They're gonna have to figure out how to develop it outside of the digital space that we train in, because it's not enough. But we know that off bat. With the knowledge of it's more like theory, because it's very difficult to understand how this is hands-on, since it's not one of those things that seems hands-on. The more and more that we go through it, doesn't seem that it's something that is hands-on. So what I want to do is kind of like brainstorm kind of those things that make the knowledge of self hands-on. You know what I mean? Like what makes it hands-on, and what would make the classroom, the digital classroom, insufficient, you know? And even then, this was just because I had a crazy week. Um, but I am going back to law school in Mecca. We'll be doing a class at law school in Mecca. I'm regularly going for 5 to 8. If no one shows up in the physical classroom, then I give you that extra hour online another time. Okay. Um, Obviously, the hour that I was supposed to give, I couldn't give. But right now, I'm just gunning for quality because if I owe hours here, oh man, you know. But that was what I intended to give, was that hour of the health protocol and beginning. But I might do an expanded one, because what I would like to do is just that only. Um, and we'll get that through. That way, every year I want to update it and stuff. It has updates, different things, different ways to look at things, um, different ways to make it easier. And then what I haven't done with the protocol is mix it with the training. So the protocol, that's how I figured I'm gonna update it, with some type of physical training. So it's not necessarily martial training, but it's just physical training, and how we can have those goals together. Because a lot of people, they're trying to eat better, but I don't. For me, it doesn't really work if you try to eat better and then you're not really training, getting the body in shape, because then one of them will lose. Malik, peace. Oh, that's peace substance. Appreciate you. Yeah, Priesthood 7. You sound familiar. I don't know if you are. Let me know who you are, because you sound familiar, because your question sounds like somebody I know, one of my brothers that always asks me the same question. But I don't know Killer Sin personally. I just know that a lot of people in Staten Island, in the Woo, they were around the knowledge, but they don't have it. Um, as far as under the study, and that kind of segues into what I was talking about. You know, it segues into what I was talking about, because um, they might not they didn't go under the study, so they get blatant things wrong. You know what I mean, about the history. You know, so when we talk about like this digital cipher, right? It's easy to talk about the validity of it for people that aren't in the New York City area. It has to have some kind of way to be legitimate. If you're not in the New York City area, I think it's illogical that everybody that is outside of the New York City area has to make an obligatory a pilgrimage, you know, to Mecca, and come out here to the school, because just like the 5%ers always in Brooklyn, and Medina, Manhattan, Mecca, right? All the five boroughs, people weren't poor. The elders that got it wouldn't have been able to travel somewhere else to get it. But then those poor that get it out there, anywhere outside of New York, they're expected to travel, you know? So that kind of doesn't make sense, as far as like a standard. It's kind of a double standard when you think about it. You know what I mean? Um, and by the way, Malik, you're saying, yeah, you can bear witness. You don't. It's not a knock. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at these young men when they got on, they got on because that knowledge was around certain people very strong. But you could tell that they weren't under the study. I'll tell you one thing. Like we, I was reviewing and I was writing about you God's autobiography, and taking down, looking through my notes that I highlighted out of his autobiography, right? And what was interesting, one thing I highlight all the time though, is that he referenced the mystery God like everywhere, like it was totally inconsistent. And he definitely didn't talk like he was a 5%, even though he has the most 5% name that you can have. You know what I mean? Right? But what I find, okay, priesthood, okay, Okay. Um, I don't think I know you. I just was there's another guy that I know real peace with me that he always asks me about Wu Tang members. But the um the interesting about thing about it is that it interesting concept in the you God thing off the in the very first pages he notes that out of the Wu members he never really built with Master Killer that much, you know. And Master Killer Jamel Reef, right? If you've ever built with him or met him and stuff, he's he really is in our nation. Like he goes to you know he goes to parliaments, he goes to things like that. So you know he really he really deals with the knowledge, right? Um, and out of all the other Wu members, he said he didn't really know his background story. And I found that really interesting that they all didn't want to get their background stories, like didn't find that incomplete, like to one day say to get that story. And priesthood, I certainly wouldn't consider him a Muslim god. No, no, no. Let's be clear. When we say something like Muslim god, that's an insult. I don't think I would, and that's a specific people that have a specific agenda. So if you God makes certain mistakes or doesn't know certain things, I would never label him like that. I have found him to be sincere. So yeah, I wouldn't label him like that. You know what I mean? Um, Muslim gods are specific peoples that really try to blend the NOI and this knowledge of self and make it all the same. And that's something of a that's a level of disingenuous that they have their own pseudo scholarship behind them, books and papers and all that. So I absolutely would not relegate you God to that horrible horrible cipher right there. You know what I mean? His mistakes are his own mistakes, misconceptions, and then also I understand that it's a book, and they don't edit it, and sometimes they don't write it. It's as told too. Um, so if someone was doing a book with me and they were saying that they were 5%, I was like, well, you know what, you got this wrong here. So even said, well, I want to keep it like that, and I said, well, we're gonna have to fix it. That you had this perception of that what that was, whether like we would have to amend certain things, make footnotes that the word God body was what you thought was the correct word, or Clarence 13X is what you thought we called Allah the Father. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that we would have to put as a footnote and things like that, because your perception of what you went through and what you thought it was when you really lived it is crucial to the biography, right? But it cannot stay that way without some kind of footnote, because it has to be noted that it is, indeed incorrect in a fashion, in a particular way, you know. But Malik, understanding is clarity and compositive insight and discernment. Absolutely. Peace, justice. You said it's wild because when I was young, FOI before becoming true living, I never saw FOI confuse people with being 5%ers. Hmm. I mean, that's the agenda, though. That's the absolute agenda, and I'm not even mentioning the names unless somebody here mentions them, because I really don't. I don't feel like talking about them. I don't feel like talking about them unless they're mentioned and stuff. You know, just because I'm not in the mood. But to me, that to call you God, that would be calling him a 10%er, a bloodsucker, and that's the lane that I put these folk in. You know what I mean? Saladin, Micah, peace. Um, it's a serious charge. You know what I mean? It's a and it's a. I don't have no feelings about this, about taking that back. But I'm gonna get to your question, Malik. I just want to segue into, so in the classroom, digital classroom, how would people that were far away, not able to do things? Listen, I think if you're in the New York area, we have to find a way to meet up. It doesn't have to be every week, right? But you find a way to say, well, once a month I will go to the classroom and make sure that I am in the classroom as I should be, right? Um, every single student should be contacting me via email. If you have, contacting me enough where you end up getting my number and you could text me, right? This is the work. But there also should be an inquiry about history, about all of these things, and learning to understand the nuances of the history. This is why a lot of times when I teach it, like for example, the old power refinement build, I always give you the history behind it and not just my understanding. I think in Priesthood, I think in the Dawu, I put a lot of that on the editorship, and a little bit mixed in Rizza too. Um, I think that see, real quick, since we're talking about a lot of times in this classroom, reading in this classroom curriculum, reading, writing, and communication skills are crucial. And one of the things that people don't really notice, right, is that the things that you understand and the things that you may not be able to communicate them in a larger cipher. Because when you see a larger cipher, it doesn't mean that you get nervous or anything. It means that you don't know how to communicate it for a broad amount of people that may not understand. Like for example, um, if you're in a small cipher and you're people and you're talking about why you like a particular album, music, and everybody is aficionados of the particular genre, you may be fine with that. But let's say you're trying to explain the depth of a genre, or the depth of an album to people that don't really follow the genre at all. And then now you may be stumbling because you're not so used to that, right? This is kind of what I mean. And I think RZA particularly has always used the all in all in that. Doesn't mean that it works for me. It leaves a lot of things out. Um, it does make it seem mysterious, especially to us that know. I'm not. I gotta say, I'm not sure if it leaves it mysterious to people that don't know. But I do know this though, it has to in some fashion because some of the things are incomplete. Um, but in many ways, I do definitely see RZA as a 5%. I would never take that away. And the reason I bring up, when we look at these people that are really doing stuff, the Wu and other people, you shouldn't be looking at them just to criticize and do things like we read you God's book. It becomes clear that the way he keeps repeating about the Lord and God and everything, like it's clear, right? After a while, the editor, that the writer editor that is transcribing cannot be at fault here anymore. Um, with RZA, it's a little bit different. I think his concepts are so much deeper and more profound, and a lot of them extremely rooted in what we deal with. That to say that they're dealing with mystery would be to take away from the depth of what he has built. That he has real 5% builds, that are worthy. Now, why say all this? When we look at these artists, what we really should be doing is, instead of just criticizing, is saying, well, what would I say? How would I say it? And develop your communication skills to say, how would you build in that cipher where people would understand you, but then also not be alienated? You know what I mean? So a lot of times people think that you are building well if your build is exclusionary. In other words, it shows that you are this, right, God, and everybody else is not. That's not really the best way to build, because it doesn't show people the depth of what you're trying to share. And it also shows that you're just trying to place yourself. And then often it comes out that you're placing yourself above. It doesn't really show um, the depth of it to the people, So that is a problem. That is a problem. So once you look at things and say, well, what would I say to the people that would explain the concepts, but also be useful. Right? This is important. This is important because the Father was never on a soapbox. You know, it's one of the greatest uh, uh, truths of his reality that acknowledged some of the builds about refinement being in there. That means if refinement is a focus, a reminder of the focus of power. However, um, a lot of people don't notice that. A lot of people don't notice those things that he was doing. The craftiness that you didn't have to always, every build isn't always about declaring yourself. It's about showing understanding that other people can use. So how do you gauge a cipher? A lot of the times the artists that we talk about, their own forms are talking to more people than the Father ever built with in one at one moment. And so it should be respected as that. Not excused, but it should be respected that it's a different cipher and brand new. And so you should be thinking like, well, what would I do in these moments? Okay, my mic is going out. God, let me know when my mic is going out. Let me know if there's any problems. I have everything plugged in, but all right. Yeah, it's not giving me any updates about how my connection is bad. So it could be just that the way I plugged in the mic, you know. Oops. All right. Everything seems all right. All right. Peace to the God for letting me know. But all right, there's good questions in here. All right. So I was addressing Priesthood 7 when he was talking about resolution, the story outside of himself. Hmm. I think also too, one of the reasons I give like a little leeway to Rizza is because I think he's a great teacher and I think he's a great orator. But at the same time, his a lot of his foundation are the stories of ancient texts, especially from the Asian, whether Taoist or Buddhist. And being a martial artist that has the knowledge of self, I relate to a lot of the perspective that he talks about. So I know where he's going with them. You know what I mean? And I think that Rizza learned a lot of ways to explain this knowledge through the paradigm of that. And that also relates to me as well. That's also something I can say I relate to. Just as you said, a lot has changed. Some started doing that a few years ago, back to due to Wesley and Wick Heel, completely out of pocket. I need to actually connect with you in the physical Lord. I need that book. Okay, that's peace. That's peace. Yeah, right. But right now, for everybody that would like the book, that I just released, that's for you can email me and everything like that about that. You know what I mean? Um, right now, it's our class. Everything I'm giving you is here is free, and my book is not free. That what's related to this class is that I am writing a peace course book of my philosophies and some insights into how I built and wrote some of the plus lessons, so people can see sometimes inside the experience and the mind set that I have had these years teaching, from the beginning all the way till now, and that obviously is on for sale too. And I don't make no qualms about that. I don't feel no kind of way, um, because I'm writing a book that I will be paid for, right? It'll have to be purchased. Um, but at the same time, no, it has ideas that they don't really work if I just share them in the classroom. They need to be written down. You know what I mean? And for me to write them down and share them to people, um, that would be the best way, you know. And it's really not going to be like, compared to the other books, the charge is really just going to be to add on with me. But like I said, this is my career. I make the most money I make is with my books, you know. So anybody that wants to add on and everything, that's them. But that, my email. But my email here is really more for everyone to really get in contact and make yourself a digital student that will build. You know what I mean? Saladin, peace, God. Haven't seen you in here in a while. Do you consider NOI family related to NG? Um, I do, absolutely, absolutely. I don't consider, Muslim God's family. I think that what they've done is devilishment. I consider all people that are trying to, all original people as family. I don't, in that sense. Um, I think definitely we're more related to NOI, theoretically and historically. So there is a affinity and a lot of love right there. You know what I mean? Even though a lot of people wouldn't see that, like a 5% like me from Puerto Rican background, and then dealing with the cliche of what people think the NOI is. Many wouldn't really see that as family, but I do, You know what I mean? But I see the entire diaspora that fights for freedom and is of a revolutionary mindset, whether in the spiritual realm, like as we are saying that we know dealing with this now scientifically as opposed to mysteriously, um, or in the socioeconomic, you know, and political realms. Right. And remember, Justice, you said sometimes when a person anxiety kicks in, they lose the ability to communicate themselves in the cipher. That bigger it is. Um, and remember, it's loose. Loose is like loose shoes, loose shoelaces, right? LOOSE is loose. It means something that's losing its grip. It doesn't mean lose. Um, that's one of the biggest errors that's in the Elijah Muhammad books, and it has affected a generation. Seriously, there's no way to think about that differently. Um, I think this, you know what I mean? I've spoken in public for over half my life. You know what I mean? And I've shared things where people have the ability to scrutinize them. So when you get into bigger platforms, arenas, and stuff, you have to actually coach yourself how you will respond to certain things. Just like when they say Kobe Bryant used to visualize things, visualize scenarios, um, which makes him more powerful, right? Because if he could visualize the scenarios and what to do with them, that also means that when he mastered that, when he felt comfortable in that, what he could also do is actually manipulate, right? Manipulate the court and the opponents to actually construct the scenario that he practiced the most. You know, so this is profound, but this doesn't really happen with people because they don't get enough practice, and that practice isn't just going in front of people. That's a poor way of doing it. It would be poor to go from a learner in the classroom where the classroom is your laboratory to experiment and fail and succeed and, and ever develop, to then go out to instead go outside and propose things that you haven't studied well enough and propose them out there. I mean, there's enough of that in the news. You know what I mean? We have enough of that out there, right? We don't need that. But the the better way is to do these exercises in your mind. Exercises of thinking of a question, answering it, thinking of the counter question, and having these back and forth conversations in your own mind. They can also be something that you write. You write them in your journals this way, right? So there's all types of things that can be done um, to make this, more worthwhile, right? I hope that my mic is better now. Okay, you let me know, Justice, and I know the God just texted me, so if there's a glitch in the sound, it's really because of my equipment. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing the best I can though. So, all right. Malik, you said when you write a book, do you lose a lot of creative control, or does the editor change the narrative later on? That's a good question. It depends on where you publish. I self-publish. Nobody can change my stuff. I don't even let. Most people don't do this either, but people let other people edit it errors and things like that. I don't do that. I'll fix my errors on the way, in reprints. I don't let anybody touch my stuff because I'm writing so different than everyone else, and I mix in so much um, poetic abstract license with the way I write my prose, and it mixes with more of the technical pieces, especially with music writing. So I can't have anybody, and I won't have anybody edit them. But I have complete control. So like if you read a book that I wrote, the editor is the me in the past, right? Right. But and certainly me in the present because I'm always trying to make them better. But I think this. I think that things are altered for what they keep out. Um, Even autobiographies, uh, the editor can guide what is addressed. Like, I always have a problem with Prodigy's autobiography. He made so many classic albums and they concentrated more on his personal life. And then what happened was it's very interesting because he had sickle cell and had to live with that in the performance arts, which is and be an artist that way is that's crazy. But it impaired the book drastically because then it dove more into what he was thinking about people at the time. And I don't think that he realized that the book ran away into gossip for a lot of it. And that's too bad because um, a book about 250 pages, I mean, I would put myself in it. If I was editing it, I'd probably get about 50 pages of history on just the infamous, and maybe another 50 on Hell on Earth, two of the greatest albums ever made, you know? And then how much more can you get on that fourth album? You know what I mean? I'm forgetting the name of it. What's the name of that fourth album? We know with the murder music, with the great G raps, the realist was one of the great G rap verses. I mean, we're not even talking about the greatness that was already there. So okay. All right, let me copy some notes here. One thing to promote here, because a lot of the students, it will be hand in hand. It'll be useful. This idea of we're talking about the martial arts. Know that I do offer the Zoom training, the live training. If you're in the New York City area, you know what I'm saying. That is definitely up. If you email me, I could give you my rates for that or anything like that. Okay. Everything else that we talk about in this class, though, is free reign to get all of the materials from me for free. So if there are books that you want, if there are things that you need, because there's a lot of books I give out. You know what I mean? You have to be ready. You have to be ready. All right, Mikhail, peace. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Those well wishes. Priesthood, you said, what did you see on those that had knowledge that went to the gang cipher and tried to mix the two? Um, I do have this thought. Obviously, there's two ideas that I have. Historically, I think sometimes, not you, but this question, since you're Wu related, you started Wu related. The reason this became a question is also Wu related because it was a way to dart freedom, you know, Papa Wu. because Papa Wu really got into all the gangs and really was teaching all of them. And he was doing this in the 90s into the 2000s. And I don't think that a lot of them were great students and understood. And at the time, they'd be in the middle. So he brings it to Parliament so they could learn, but then they get ostracized because they're not learning, but they're in the middle of learning. So they're supposed to have errors. The problem is that when the young are so strong in the gangs and they have an error with this knowledge, it becomes magnified because their errors become dangerous. Let's say a guy like me never was doing crime in the street, always calculating what I would share because I'm a writer. That's my experience out there. The experience I have going outside into the street is as a journalist, is as a writer, going to study my cultures that are from the street. And then that also was how I got knowledge of self. So everything is calculated, everything is reserved, everything is mature. So I'm not a problem if I don't know things correctly because I'm quiet until I understand. Right. So this was the thing, something I didn't have to learn when I got the knowledge. That's not so much when you teach youth that are already in the gang. So it got confused, it got mixed. And I think a lot of times Papa Wu Freedom really got involved in trying to show that he was really, that he loved these brothers and that he would teach them. And this is what happens. A lot of people criticize, but they never did that. They never achieved those things. They never were able to get into those ciphers, right? And what I will say is this: I think the deeper I looked into it, he wasn't teaching them wrong; they were getting it wrong, and he was trying to deal with them while they were in the middle. Just look, just like so many of you, you're in flux. There'll be a day where I tell you, if you're a student, there'll be a day where you say, "Listen, you're teaching this wrong," right? All the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean. But the other thing I think about that question is this, right? How do we teach people like that? Right? See, well, we have to understand that this knowledge of self has been used by everybody. So most of the people that will get the knowledge of self will not be in this nation. This nation has like the statistics like a martial artist. A lot of people learn, but they don't become martial artists. Right? So the same thing happens with the knowledge of self. And I've taught hundreds of people. The amount of people I've taught are in the hundreds. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And the amount of people that have been through my classroom is probably at least 1,000. Um, so my percentage is, if you said, well, how many you taught that became 5%? I mean, technically my percentage is dismal, right? It'd be dismal. I don't even, you know what I mean? And as it should be, I guess, right? I would hope that somebody else would take the reign in the future and in the future do even better, right? But this is the way it is because you can't make anybody anything. You can only show them the insights and the knowledge and the insights, the understanding that we have, and give them a framework. So it's really about whether people use things for their own benefit. But the truth is, I've seen most people use the success that I've had. If we really were to sum it up, would be more to help people use it and not be in this, but use it for their own good as far as being righteous. So that's why statistics don't mean anything to me because I would have the statistics of being checked off as like, oh, you taught a lot of people to be righteous. But that would be the same as using it for their own gain. Because they found reason not to go outside and share it. They found reason not to say that they weren't the best teacher. They found reason to not deal with it like that, So that's that's different. Right? You have to look at things from all angles and stuff, right? From all angles. We take up people that have this particular lifestyle, right? Yeah, there's a little glitch here. I don't know why I'm getting a glitch. That could be what's messing up my mic, right? Or might mess it up before. But I have so many things that I plug in and everything like that, you know. I appreciate that, Melise. We must deal with equality as far as the purchase of your book. You know what I mean? I have no qualms about it. When people read like the Peace Course book that I write, they realize that there's nothing in it that I didn't teach a student. There's nothing in it that I didn't share to a student. And but it's also for me a document of my philosophy, and that's why I want to publish it and share it. You know, um, but we'll see. You'll see how that works. You know what I mean? But those that have knowledge of self and get into the gang cipher and mix the two, I've pretty much been answering the question of people that are in the gang cipher and get the knowledge. So they're naturally mixing the two. But people that get out of it and then go into the gang cipher and mix the two is that because a lot of times the knowledge of self is a very viable and useful knowledge. And it could be used, anything useful can be used for corruption and whatnot. You know, right? Everything good can be used disingenuously, right? And you're right, Osar. It was definitely murder music. And for me, it was a good album. In retrospect, it wasn't when I heard it. But over time, when you look at the catalog, it's great. You know, now that Prodigy's gone, you appreciate all of his work more, which is usually how it goes. Like that's why people they do this a lot with Nas. They say, "Oh, this album didn't have the beats, this and that," but trust me, you appreciate the records more. Like there are records you could tell that you'll appreciate them more for what they were, and the more that you study music, the more you realize that a classic album though is very difficult to make. Especially for hip hop, because you can make it lyrically and it's so hard to get the music to match, because sometimes the great MCs aren't inspired by the greatest music. You know what I mean? It is what it is, it is what it is. Justice, my books are always paperback, paperback, you know? Yeah, paperback. Quatis, peace. I'm a little early today because at 7 p.m. I'm going to be on the Let's Get Activated podcast and doing an interview with the Queen Samantha Level. So I wanted to get this class in a little bit earlier and get as much builds as we can. Um, and I know I missed the extra hour I wanted to give everybody. In fact, I should have been at the school, but I had a really hard training week. It gave me some nagging injuries. It's getting better, but there was a moment where I really had real difficulty. That's peace, Justice. I'm glad that these are useful. Yes, Aldine, that's really the answer, isn't it? Right? It's just like everything. Everything is for everybody, but it doesn't mean that they're for it. And people using things for their own advantage. So, boy, that's not a new thing, right? All right, I'm gonna take a break. I'll be right back. I gotta turn this fan on. Right? All right, I am back. All right. Usually when I go, I don't see any questions when I come back. All right. It's so much more refreshing here. I had to turn on the fan. All right. I can give the link to the interview I'm gonna do right after this if you guys want to see and everything. Where would let me see where that would be. Let's see. Let me see if I have it right. All right, I'm getting you that right now. That way you can go to the channel. Okay, this is the channel where it'll be streaming on. So at around 7 o'clock, that'll I'll be on the air with the sister building. Um, okay, let's look at these again. All right. Two plays at the same time right now. That's interesting. That's interesting. Because I would think, Quatis, that the roles that you're playing though would be very difficult to go in and out of, right? Like I'm assuming it would be two different roles as well. So that's interesting. You know. I can't help that, Justice. If they're going to take the books when you buy them, you know what I mean. I can't help that. But and that I'm thankful that you support. You know what I mean. Malik, you said today's degree in the 1 to 14 is the discovery part of Columbus. Many say, how can he discover what and who was here or found, as the degree says? Just would love your see on this. Well, one of the things I learned, right, when I used to tell Knowledge Me when I first got 1 to 10, I was like, he Knowledge Me is my enlightener. I would tell him, like, oh, but, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't say Native Americans, it says Indians and things like that. You know, there's a really interesting book uh, and I'm going on this tangent to show you. Let me open up my books. I just finished this book. It's all her. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, one of the great authors of Indigenous history, Indigenous herself. Let me write her name here. And again, if anyone that wants these books, I can give them. I've read three of her books, including Indigenous history, Indigenous. Um, there's a way of messing it up. Let me just write her name. um, Indigenous Peoples' History of America. She wrote another book called Loaded. What was the subtitle of that? A Disarming History of the Second Amendment. And the latest book I read from her is, let me get the name for you. I just read it. It should be here, but All the Real Indians Died Off and 20 Other Myths About Native Americans. And one of it was about Native Americans and the name being called Indians, this and that, and she didn't always find an issue with that. That Indians didn't always find an issue with that, the Native Americans. But one thing I learned when I told that to acknowledge me, and I was asking, he said, listen, learn the lessons the way they are, right? Because they have a reason for that. At the time that they wrote the lesson, that was the best name and the best word that you could use to describe the peoples. You know what I mean? Because the lesson has twofold things. Like what people forget is that the lesson isn't to be the answer that you deem correct, because then it means you already learned it. It has to also be in the language that the student can understand, right? So a lot of times the jewel is not in every single word, it's in the insight that the entire degree gives you. So the particulars may not be exactly as you deem them. You see, in this case, Native American. In this case, also when we talk about discovery. Now, for all intents and purposes, I think that people argue, and we all argue that. I mean, I'm indigenous, you know, so like when I got conscious, like that's the first thing. Like he didn't discover anything, this and that, right? But the term discovery can be used because he officially discovered it for the European. Why do I say that? Because the intention that he was given was to actually find places to conquer. So their definition of discovery never meant that they would be the first ones to find something. In fact, the opposite is true. That what is true is that their intention was to find places that are already inhabited that they can overwhelm and take over. So by that definition, by their own definition of plunder, they did discover. It's like this, right? You see a Western, they go, yo, which bank should we rob though? You know what I'm saying? Well, what's the criteria? Well, we got to find something that has all the money that we need, enough money so it's worth it. We got to find, I don't know, where we could pull out with the horses, whatever it is in the thing, you know? Or like, I forgot what Clint Eastwood movie, you got to pull out the bank and pull out the whole safe through the wall. I forgot what movie that was. I don't know if that was a Clint Eastwood one. I'm getting them all mixed up in my head. But anyway, right? A Western. They're not discovering the bank, but they have to go on their own discovery mission to find what goes in their criteria of discovering the bank that will be theirs. So they didn't, you know, the Europeans weren't lying to us. So they didn't say that this uncharted, undiscovered, unused land will be found. No, they actually were saying that whatever you find out there is allowed to be yours. So that was under the guise that you may run into other things, but if you can conquer them, then that is yours to take in the name of. Remember, not remember, but if you study Columbus, Columbus was not given the reign to travel, and he had to earn it. So what happened was when he finally did earn it, what we get a better distinction of what he was allowed to do. And we get that distinction because he was basically a foreigner to the right. Remember, he's not Spaniard, so he has his work to be validated to actually get out there, right? Is a different exercise, and it's almost a foreigner's path to go out there and do something in foreign lands. You know, because he's trying to get the rights of, you know, Ferdinand and Isabella. What are the rights that they give him are to go out there and plunder. That means he actually is discovering things. He's discovering things that belong to other people. So his discovery is not the existence of things. His discovery is the plunder readiness of what he finds. And for that, Columbus is discoverer. So when people say he didn't discover the Americas, I say that he did. He discovered them because his goal was to plunder, and he absolutely found it. You know, he absolutely found it to plunder. You know, they always say he was getting lost and stuff. A lot of that stuff is really mythologized because he had navigators that were original people. So he knew that he was going to get somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And I think that through his own ignorance, he probably had them go into routes that they may have known what was going to happen, but he didn't. Because remember, travel between you know, travel between the hemispheres was not new. It's only new to Europe, right? But the whole thing was that it was new. So I like Discovery being left in there because he discovered it and plundered it. And I think we never should be obsessed with changing the language of things so much that we're not getting the understanding. You know what I mean? That we're not getting the understanding. You know. Also, too, remember that the 120 is a document. You know, it's a document of how they saw things then. And even when you study the document, there's no way, if you ever read all of Elijah's books, that he thought that Columbus found he founded it and he's the first civilization. That's not what Elijah ever said either. So his conception of the devilishment that was triggered by Columbus, because he hardly did all of it. He just sounded the horn. Is something that is denied by the existence of that word in there. You know. So we have to look though. Well, how 120 is really such a great exercise in seeing the depth of words, you know, and what they can mean. You know, I hope that answers the question. And of course, though, this thing jumps around every time I try to scroll in this chat. Quatis, you said a guy asked me the other day, if the American black man's blood is so mixed, how can he still be original? Or what is original about him? And how can he still be God? I was stumped and didn't know how to answer that question. I thought it was a good question. I think that first off, let's go outside of that. Since, you know, I'm doing this all night. Outside. How dare anyone else throughout the entire rest of the globe speak about their purity? Because there really is none. There is no purity. You know, all of the ancient texts that we talk about and the ancient civilizations that we talked about, these people were being mixed with all of the other cultures around them. So let's say, oh no, Basunia like in Nubia and Kush, there was all like of a certain shade and this and that. And yet, culturally, and that means the people, they were still mixed. You see what I'm saying? All of the people are mixed. It's just that there is an involuntary mixing. There is a raping that goes on for all of us here in the Americas, from north to south and everything in between the Caribbean, you know, where I'm from, right? And the thing is, though, I told this to the God, like, we have to get it out of our head that we're making a big mistake when we build. It's not on you, Quatis. It's a rhetorical you. The father saw the insufficiency in phenotype in defining the original man. So that means that the phenotype is not negated, but there is a lot more to the original man than the depth of the phenotype. And that's why he said the black seed is the knowledge seed, the wisdom seed is the brown seed, and the understanding seed is the yellow seed. The majority of yellow seeds, though, do not appear to be original by the definition so easily laid out by the black and the brown. You see? Even a person like me, that's why, like, I had answered this the other question. In many, I'm a mix of two. Culturally and ethnically and geographically, I'm a brown seed. And as you can tell, when you see me training out there in the summer, I'm a brown seed. I also can classify as a yellow seed because I'm light. You know what I'm saying? However, my culture is so blatantly indigenous and African that is not under question, right? However, what about the peoples that don't go under the guise and say that their cultures are African? And in fact, a lot of people in America could be shown East African culture and not know that it actually is Black culture. Musics like, older musics and like flamenco and other musics don't even have the same rhythmic structure that we are used to, you know? And so it would sound totally foreign and would actually sound offbeat to us, and would probably spur on our, our typical, oh, it's offbeat, that ain't the original, man, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So this idea of the mixture of things, I find that to be off. I find it to be incorrect. You know what I mean? That's not what the original man is. The original man knows that of the black, brown, yellow seed, and nothing could tamper with that. Only thing that could tamper with that is if they don't see their own culture, they don't see their own history, and they allow themselves to be ripped apart. Where, like, for example, whole cultures can be ripped apart, where you see a very rare few, and that's all you have left. Like when I talk to, you know, brothers that are of a Sicilian, Southern Italian background, no matter what, they are living a half original life in their cultural context, because there are people that have spent so much time doing devilishment, deeds of devilishment, individually and as a people, to separate themselves. You know, the truth is that in history, more often than not, whiteness is defined by the deeds of overbearing conquering that are engaged in. Unfortunately, they are not defined by the wonderful cultural deeds that maybe, whites may do, the literature that they may write that is worthwhile, or any of the music that they try to contribute to the world, or insights of philosophy. That's especially the American culture, right? Very little. When we look at things in a large perspective, right, that's really what we get. And when we talk about a people passing, absolutely 100%, a people passing that are light skinned and say, listen, I'm not going to call myself that Latin name. I'm going to call myself a European name. I'm going to take away all of my ethnic markers and make sure I don't get sun. I'm going to change the diction of my speech. The only way that they could be officially white is by not, the easiest way is by doing devilishment. And unfortunately, that has been a cultural reality. See? That has been a cultural reality that even white people have to contend with if they want to be righteous. You know what I mean? The most righteous white people have always been anomalies, not just in, let's say, whites that get knowledge and stuff in our nation. I'm talking about the entire country, this entire USA, right? I don't know if that starts to answer your question though, but it's a complex question, you know. That's Peace Malik, however you want to see. How do I look on the big screen, right? Do I look like a movie star? Quatis, you said yes, two different roles. They're both in German, and one is in rare dialect of the German language. Whoa! So I'm getting my butt kicked right now. Tomas Correa. Okay, peace. Saladin, you said peace soon, yes? Could you expound on 16 Shades? Real simple. That flag is 8 points, right? Each point is black and yellow, right? 8 times 2 is 16. 16 shades of the original, man, from black to yellow. It wasn't supposed to be defined where this is what this one looks like, number one, number two, number three, all the way to 16. No. You know what I mean? It was just something that goes in accord with the flag, in those 8 points. That's how we build. You know what I mean? Right? All right. Justice, you said I was recently building with two gods about this, about the particulars in the language used for that time when the lessons were made. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's words that people don't really use, like Asiatic and things like that. Like they don't use that. You know what I mean? And then if you have to read dig deeper into etymology, because people don't really understand why Asia, the whole planet is called Asia. So you have to go into etymology. You know what I mean? You said we now do lessons, but it's up to go beyond 120, up to us to go beyond 120, do more research on our own. Absolutely, yeah. And isn't that the way with all things, right? Okay, divine, that's peace. That's peace. Supreme scientist, peace, God. Right, one of the great thinkers out there. Right? You said peace indeed. We let him discover it. Also implying that original people already had knowledge of it. Very good points, Supreme. It's all in the language. It's all in the dictionary. We let him. You know what I'm saying? We let him. You know, and that's the thing, Supreme. They really saw it in their head that they they didn't think that they were being let. They saw it in their head that they were going to plunder. Like he basically was allowed to contain booty. Look, understand this, and I say this like if you want to see a great example, Puerto Rico. The original name for Puerto Rico that the Spaniards gave was San Juan, but all they did was go to San Juan port and collect the booty, collect the things that were stolen, and so they started to just call it port. The port of what? Well, they're getting the riches, the port of riches, right? So the name of an entire island is literally telling you like their whole goal, like what they were there for. You know, they weren't going, oh, this port is so beautiful, it's so rich. And no, that's how you define it for tourists. You know what I'm saying? That's how you define it for tourists. Justice, you said, appreciate that, Malik. Justice, I remember asking you this question in session a while ago, God, but after years of having the lessons, one may not recall the number or word for word like they used to be in the 1 to 40. Are they out of pocket for still building on it and referencing the degree in a paraphrasing way? Um, you know, I'm sure that in the 120, the degrees I don't like, if you figured out which degrees I don't like and I don't get much out of, I probably bumble them right now. And the degrees that I really love, I'll shoot off real easy. It's just that I love nearly all of them. You know, there's a couple of degrees I think are whack. You know what I mean? But now I'm not going to tell you because then you're going to make me quote it. But I think this. I think that if people build on a degree and they paraphrase, they should they shouldn't be paraphrasing, but the part that they're building on, they should be able to quote excessively well. Exact. I don't think they should be, because paraphrase means that you kind of fix up the language. I think they should be quoting the pieces that are most crucial there. You know what I mean? But that's always a case by case basis. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I was around Prince and he would paraphrase some stuff, and he had the great understand, knowledge me, like all of that. So you know what I mean? Right. Just as you said, I don't know if I'd be considered black or brown. I just know that my mother's side goes to the Mende tribe in Sierra Leone, and my father's from Puerto and Santo Domingo. You're there. Well, yeah, I guess sometimes it's just the light shade. It's who you're around. So in there, it'd just be a question of how dark your skin is, which I don't know because I don't see a picture. I don't. Malik, did you find it difficult when learning 136B in 1 or 2 sentence degrees? You're definitely ready for the big screen. No, those degrees I found pretty good. Those degrees I found pretty easy, because I saw it as a conversation, you know. So Quartiste, you should be able to knowledge that easy because the 1 to 36 is like a script, right? And bro, my day's going good. I'm rehabbing an injury that I had earlier this week, and I gotta tell you the things I did for it though. Rehab extremely much quicker than I thought. Um, but it was a little unstable today, so I just decided to stay in, um, and recuperate fully. That's really why I'm not at law school, you know. My strategy this year is to train harder in a shorter period of time, though. So that has been very effective, very effective. Right? Malik, you said I can't stand when the labels of who is original just because we come in different shades. This is what the work is, though, Malik. Right? This is what the work is. Because people, especially our people, we do this. We're the ones that are doing it to ourselves because we've been so hurt by each other. You know what I'm saying? A black seed almost always knows someone that looks like me that did something wrong to them. And understanding seed like me almost always knows some black seed that did something wrong to them. Think about that for a minute there. You know what I'm saying? That, and I'm just saying on that it's almost, this is where all this comes from. You know, it supports things. It supports these things. What I was taught, Justice, is that the 1 to 36 is a conversation between Fard and a judge, not Elijah, because it's not. If you look at the questions, they're questions that Elijah wouldn't know as a student. So then, technically, the questions would be made. He wouldn't know to ask certain questions in there because some of the questions show that he's asking. You know, so I was taught that it was a judge, and he, a Masonic judge of some sort, and that's why he was asking. You know, and a lot the proof was that was really in the identification of if I remember correctly, what my enlightener told me was the question of the Muslim sons, in the wilderness of North America. You know what I mean? If Elijah was a student, he may not know that there. You know what I'm saying? So it's more of a test, but it certainly was Fard answering the questions. So who would test Fard? It would be somebody here. So that's why I was taught. You know, doesn't make sense if it's Elijah, because if he's asking as a student, then some of the questions he would know, and then some of the questions he's ignorant of, it doesn't make sense that then he would know. You know, like for example, he's going through the history of slavery and how we got here. If he doesn't know those answers, right, then how would he understand the depth of the original Muslims and the Muslim sons and what that would be? You know what I mean? So that's why there's a depth to those questions are much deeper and go out of the box from what the questions are, right? Just review that for a while for those who have the 1 to 36. I do have a 1 to 36 worksheet that I wrote. you know if anybody emails me for that build, if they're on the 1 to 36 and stuff, so I have that build. Okay. Peace to the earth, peace to the earth. Malik, you said, I was told by understanding seed what you just eloquently said about analysis myself, and don't even like saying it. However, I love the bro and was getting him tough, and he took it. And to this day, okay, I'll wait to continue. I'm gonna add this. In my history of learning this knowledge, I have had moments where people that I really saw as my brothers would tell me that I wasn't as original as they were, and that they was the dominant gene. And it shows that when they dealt with the knowledge, they dealt with it in a cursory vein and not really a studious vein. Because if it says the black man is God, and in this society you're defined as black, you say, well, listen, that's peace. So now I don't have to go from there. But really, the next level should have been to say, well, why? What is it in the blackness that is supreme? What is the nature of it? And how am I composed of that? Right? How does the composition of that make it supreme? And then they would go deeper into it. And when they go deeper into it, then they would realize that it isn't really about what is expressed on just the phenotype, but really how it's manifested in all of the aspects of the body. You see? Not just the organ of the skin, right? The largest organ, but the entire work face of organs throughout the body and where it resides everywhere. You know what I mean? And how it relates to work and how it is the functioning reality of the medulla oblongata. To go deeper beneath the surface to see the depth of it. And then they would see that, wait a minute, that if I have this though, then it can't just be the reality of what is manifesting here, but because melanin manifests everywhere, it cannot be just quantified in one organ. Because if you were a scientist and someone said there is an existence of something in your body everywhere, and they said, well, let's quantify that just by one organ. But then the scientist would say, well, no, because it's in all the organs and primarily from the brain. So if we were to quantify it, measure it, see how much, the most significant measure would be from the brain. It wouldn't be from the other organs first. But instead, when we take a scientific approach to it, we're not looking at it like that way. And then we wouldn't look at it that way because we just have the composition to say, listen, I'm black, so I can go, and that's fine. Now I don't have to look deeper into it. The advantage, and that's why the Father called us the understanding seeds. Even the brown seeds go through this, but understanding seeds, right? Is that we have to go through this reality where we're in a society where I can't really go anywhere and say I'm black. Like I can't fill out something and say I'm the original black man. You see what I'm saying? I can't do that, right? I can't say, oh, well, I'm indigenous though. Oh, because they've already relegated the term Hispanic, Latino, um, into this range here. You know what I'm saying? Non-white Hispanic or whatever, and put it there, which are all terrible terms, right? So I would have to go, and I'm saying kind of I would like rhetorically, I would have to look deeper and say, well, why am I the original black man? And go deeper. The thing is that most people aren't doing that with themselves. And that's the problem. Especially when they're darker. That's why I say with the darker shades, don't skip this work. Do not skip this work. Do not assume that you're the original black man because you're black. You know, don't assume that you know exactly what blackness means because you have melanin. Because a lot of people that are original man, they got the knowledge, they have no real knowledge of melanin or anything like that. You know, they haven't read any of the text, any of the crucial text. And then they'll quote to me the pseudoscience text about melanin, which are poorly informed. All right. He says you bully him. It was all love. Funny how we see the interesting. Supreme Scientist said, does that have anything to do with the above question 10? I never viewed it as a conversation because people don't usually enumerate the questions and answers in a conversation. That too, you know, Supreme. I would say this though. Here's the out on that, Supreme. I said that it was a judge. I was told that it was a judge of a Masonic order. If it was a judge of a Masonic order, that wouldn't be an awkward way to answer a question. You know what I mean? Because they're all from you know, clandestine and arcane texts that are all numbered and coded. You know, the truth is that 120 lessons being numbered, the supreme wisdom from the NOI being numbered, is not their innovation. You know what I mean? So that's where you can get around that, Supreme. You know, if we're gonna keep justifying shit, you know, right? Right. I just flipped it though, you know what I mean, to try to explain that, but I think I did a good job. Right? But I Divine, you said yes, going deeper than the surface. Black man is God is really the black man is mind is God. Man comes from a Sanskrit word meaning manas, which means mind. It has nothing to do with skin pigmentation. And you know, the thing I divine is that I do think it does, and I do think it is more. I think it does. Like I don't look in the mirror and say I'm original man and I don't have original skin. I consider my skin as original as it gets. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's for other people to have their own quandaries about it, right? But it's not the only factor. It's one of the parts. You know what I mean? What should we read about melanin? You know what? Let me. I had there's a the best book is one I cannot get digitally. So even when I update, I keep telling you that the major update of my beginner book list is really the health books. I think they're outdated. I know that they're outdated and they're disgusting. But the best book is The Science of Myth and Melanin because he covers other crucial books. You know what I mean? Uh, Dr. Richard King's, Carol Barnes, and others. So he gives a good framework. There is okay. That's the best book to start with because it gives you a good framework, a way to get around everything. And it's an old book. I've never seen this even on PDF. Since we're on the case right now. I think that's a great place to start. There was one book that I find to be atrocious. I disagree, and I don't have the notes in front of me, but Layla Africa's Melanin: What Makes Black People Black. I think it's complete pseudoscience, and it has no real documentation at all. You know, I think because that's a more recent book, and I think it does nothing. I think it's all wrong. You know, what's crazy is that there are other good books too as well. There's some that I should have had read a long time ago that I'm definitely going to get into. So, but Science of Myth and Melanin is a great start for that. All right, let's get. I love the ISIS papers. The reason I don't mention that is that's more of a socio historical, analytical, and I do bear witness to her builds, and I think that that's something to build on. But I want to give you science first. But ISIS Papers is a great book, a standard book. I think everybody should read it. So that's on my beginner book list too. So I think I don't know. Let me see if I have a digital copy of that. I don't know if I do. I do have a PDF of that. You know, I don't think it's that nice looking, but I hate PDFs as you could tell. So it's just a picture PDF where they just took pictures of every 2 pages. But if you don't have the book, it's better than not having it. So if anybody wants that, like I said, it's yours. Again, That'll be an extra like little class too, where I go through the beginner book list. But I'm gonna update it because I really want to put better health books, and I'll probably get some better health books. You know what I mean? I think ISIS Papers is one of those books that really opens people's minds. And I also, you know what I like about the ISIS Papers? A lot of people that read and get the knowledge, like they're not used to reading more scholarly text. So when they read the ISIS Papers, it's a way to get into that, where you're reading something that has a scholarly diction about it, but it isn't so over the head that you know you're just lost. So it's a good primer into that world. She wrote it scholarly, but for the lay person. You know, a lot of insights, a lot of analysis, and I think it's great. You know, how can how can we become better at being digital students, if especially if you have no real way? It's like you're supposed to make a nation and then validate it by having all the gods and earths around you, then go learn. That's not really how it works. You'd have to get it somewhere. So you have to find a way to be in contact. The best way is to make sure that you have things to share with your teacher that involve questions. That means involve questions to me, but also the work you do. So, like, it's clear that I'm telling you to write and I'm telling you to read. It means I'm telling you to think of questions, to think of ideas of how you see degrees and your ideas, but also to read work, to read more, and to understand more, and also engage the creative arts. A lot of people keep taking this and saying that everybody to be a rapper. This isn't what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that everybody would engage in some kind of creative form and engage in it just to develop themselves. You know what I mean? The Earth book list, that book is going great, by the way, Malik. It's just that I want to read all the books. So hopefully by the end of the year I would have read all the books. I hate suggesting book lists that I didn't read. You know what I mean? It's like what everybody's doing with Anthony Fauci's book, with the book on Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They didn't read the book. They didn't go through the references. They didn't validate it. And then they say it's not right and exact. Um, they didn't do any work with it. So even though the books I have, I'm very confident that they all belong there. I would like to, read them myself, and a lot of times because they're very interesting too. Uh, you know, Correa, that's not a good way of looking at education and learning. You know what I'm saying? Um, if you think you're too old for anything, then you're already past due. I think that you have to redefine what enlightener is. If you're thinking to yourself, you can't be an enlightener like the way I was, let's say, with my enlightener as a 23-year-old, which was considered old. I was about 23 with Knowledge Me, who was about 20 years older than me. So he was the age I was at now, a little bit younger, about 44, when I started to learn with him. I think that's incorrect. And that's where you're going to find the slight. I think the mentality should be, can I find an experienced teacher to teach me what I need to know? And it would also be the same as if I would try to teach you. I've already made it clear that I teach people that are here. I don't look for in this classroom, I'm not looking for the student that is an ideal student that Allah, the Father, would have. That's who he dealt with. I deal with what's in front of me. You know what I mean? I deal with the youth. I deal with the younger students. I deal with the older students. I deal with everyone that's in front of me, and I deal with them accordingly. The younger students, they get taken through different things, maybe a little bit more in detail. The older students, I expect more, and we get that. You know what I'm saying? So it depends. It depends. You have to find that proper relationship. You know what I mean? Because if you think that you're older, and that, let's say I would be your enlightener, it doesn't mean I would treat you like a child. It means I would treat you like someone that doesn't know something and give you all the materials to learn it. And I actually would expect you to be of a student of a higher grade, right? So all that would happen was that the expectations with you would be higher, you know? So it's really how you make this relationship, right? The ninth degree in the 1 to 40. Well, I'm trying to remember the issues with that degree. I might be getting it wrong with another one where it was misspelled, or remember this argument. Not an argument, but back and forth. But no, I don't think it was that degree. Um, why does the devil teach the 85 that a mystery God brings all this? Right? To conceal the true and living God and make slaves out of 85% by keeping them blind, worshiping something he knows does not exist, right? No, worshiping something he knows they cannot see, invisible, right? And it's crazy. I don't. I find this degree doesn't always hit me, Malik, only because I find it a little redundant. By the time I got up to this, I was like, we have to memorize this, and it's kind of redundant to the other ones. You know what I'm saying? Um, Bits and pieces of it are in other degrees. You know what I'm saying? Um, for example, like the 12th degree. Why does he teach that? I felt those degrees were shorter, but say the same thing. You know, but the best thing about the degree is that it acknowledges that a lot of that the 85 take away the causes to things, so that they know that it rain, hail, snows, and thunder, right? But they don't really ask about that cause. So what is it in the particular individuals we deal with? What is it in ourselves and all the things that we deal with that we can find that are the things that we allow to continue? So this degree is really, it's crazy because I said that, but it actually is probably a better amplifier of what I say was bathe yourself of belief, because it says that 85 knows that it rains, hail, snows, and also hears thunder above their head, but they don't try to learn who it is that comes from, right? By asking, by letting the 5% teach them, right? The first thing that always gets me in that degree is by letting the 5% teach them. Um, I don't know why they should let the 5% teach them. You know what I mean? I feel like we have to earn that. I also feel that we have to find out why they don't think about the causes to things. That this degree is really amplifying the concept that they don't see a root in the things. That the root of things is not. is not findable, and it's dismissed. That's why I always say the religion is the glass ceiling. It's a true glass ceiling, because every time you get to a path where something cannot be achieved or it seems insurmountable, you say, well, we did everything we could. Leave it up to God, the mystery God. This is your glass ceiling. This is the best you could do with things. See? If we talk about you, God, one of the things that was amazing is that it's a great example of that, because every time there was something he couldn't explain or something that seemed so insurmountable at the time, it really was that. Not knowing that it was him who prevailed, not knowing that it was his own conscience and his own morality that was shining through in certain decisions. If you read the book, you know what I mean. Which is his own ethics, which is based on what your understanding and love was finally having some insight. The the willingness to work with those who showed and proved themselves, to have who are willing to write their history in advance, which in this case means RZA, right? And the other ones that would they were building with, right? So these are things that I think about in a degree, you know. But what always perplexed me about that lesson, maybe you don't always hear, was that as a teacher all these years, I don't know if I like the word there, saying they don't let the 5% teach them. I, there's so much arrogance written into 120. It's crazy, you know what I mean? And I don't think it's helpful if all these years I went into the classroom, including here today, and assumed that what I know, you just have to let me teach you. You know what I'm saying? Right? I do remember the Mart on 125th. I didn't buy too many books there. When I became really a resident of Harlem, getting the knowledge, these last 20 plus years, I bought all of the books I bought were from the gods that were vending, Sekou, Savior, you know what I mean? So I was buying from the gods. I never used the book vendors anywhere else. I never bought a book from anybody else, you know? I think there might have been one book, and I have obviously erased it from my memory on purpose, that I bought that wasn't from one of them, and because they didn't have it and they were slow with it. And I think I felt so bad about it, I probably erased it from my memory though. But I know I bought one thing, because I remember I was telling Saving Knowledge, oh yeah, I got it already, and back then I couldn't really say I got it from the internet. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't. I mean, if you look at it that way, it certainly it includes 85 God Devil. I see that. I can see that. Yeah. You said ironically 120 is beautiful and grammatically flawed. Yeah, it is grammatically flawed, but at the same time, a lot of the beauty of the language is because of their willingness of its flaws. It's very intriguing in that way. You know? But simply put, a last thing about that enlightener thing. Are there things that you don't know and need to be learned from a particular teacher? If the answer is yes, then it doesn't matter about what we call it, enlightener. If it has the style of relationship that one thinks of as the cliche, the truth is that one needs a teacher for this. Absolutely. And if this is what you need to know, then you need to define it as an adult. And that's what I'm saying. If a lot of you are older and learning it digitally, and those who are younger and only can learn it digitally here, it is up to you to define the value and make it valuable, the relationship between, in this case, me and you getting the knowledge. It really is up to you. You know what I mean? Right? Um, I hope I'm not glitching too much, you know? I hope I'm not glitching too much. We only have about 10 minutes here. I told you I have an interview and I have to get ready with with the sound check and all that. So I can only go up to 6:30 today. All right. If I have time during the week and I have this thing ready, what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do is prepare that health lesson and really go into it. So that way that it'll be complete in a separate teaching, so that way you could look it up like you did with the other plus lessons, you know. But know that the Peace Course book is coming soon. It isn't a book that replaces this class by any means. It is a much deeper philosophical work. So the Peace Course book that I'm writing, it isn't a book that says you didn't go through the Peace Course if you read the book. You're getting thoughts about the way of teaching and the knowledge, but trust me, it isn't that type of book. So, you know, don't don't think that you've gone through this class if you read the book. Right? These classes are yours, they're not mine. You know what I mean? And as I learn of you more individually and we build offline and everything like that, that's where I really get the depth of the insights of the type of curricula that you should focus on, the type of books that you should particularly be reading, and those particular things. You know what I mean? Very interesting. Have time. Wow, closest brother in your tree got 120, 51. You know, let's be honest, man. A lot of people missed the knowledge. I talked about this last week. A lot of people missed the knowledge, and a lot of people. The Peace Course book is not out yet, Malik. I'm still putting that together, though. You know, I haven't decided how it's finished or the entire framework of it. I only have like I have about 100 to 200 pages of it already written. So I have to see what else goes into it, you know. And it's not going to be one book. As I go along, I might write more books about stuff. You know, again, it's more of teaching philosophies and things like that. You know, certainly useful for those who have learned with me a long time. You know, but any book that I sell that's on my own, if you email me, I can get you the book. That's how I sell it. I can sell it to you personally. But for those that really want to learn, and I would advise Tomas Correa, email me Sunez97 at gmail.com. Okay. All right. But that's that's peace, Malik. I appreciate that. You know, there's going to be a lot of books I release. The hardest part about releasing books is that I have to get people to do the covers, and I need them to be nice. You know, I want them to look nice. You know, that's the only part of the book process I don't know how to do. You know what I mean? Is make my own covers and stuff. Um I'm not artistic. I don't care for it at all. So you know what I mean. So that's peace, Tomas. You know, if you email me, let me know your history, your thoughts, your ideas. You know what I mean. The more I learn of you, the more I can teach you. You know, that's what everybody. You know what I mean. That's what everybody. But as we start the series with the February, one way that students that are already learning with me, tell me what you accomplished this month. Tell me your training. I always want to know how people are training their body. How are they getting physically in shape? How is their diet going? You know, how can we live this life though in such a structured way where it doesn't feel robotic, but it also isn't chaotic and sloppy? This is, you know, this is what we're trying to do. You know, all right. Indeed, indeed. And by the way, for those that don't understand yet about this relationship that must be built, if you don't if you don't get a if you don't really contact me, then you're not really able to get the insights that will be most useful to you. You certainly don't tap into all of the the library and the research and the plus lessons that I've written and things like that that'll be useful as you go along. So it's important. Righteous Way has great covers, all three of them, the trilogy, and I edited all three of those. Starmel, what a legend, you know, all crucial books. If anybody that wasn't in this nation that tried to learn about this nation, those would be the books to start with, I think. And for those that are in the nation, I think they need to read all three of them to understand how to build. Because for those that would know most of the stuff, especially like maybe you say in the first book or the second book, you might know most of the history. But the way that Starmel is giving understanding, the way that he's teaching things, it'll give you an idea of how to teach 85 in bulk. So if you're talking about like building in a larger cipher, this will teach you. You know what I mean? Certainly. Yeah. All right. If there's any last questions, we are at the end of this class session. If there are any questions, please ask. If not, email me. I don't mind taking the last question if there's anything like a quick question, you know. But definitely email me. All right. And if you want to keep seeing me build, I definitely will be. I think it'll be very interesting. You could always, go over to the. I'll give you the YouTube channel now, um, certified Nation Entertainment, and you can see where the build is going to be. I'm going to be interviewed in about a half hour at 7 o'clock. You can check that out on there. It'll be live on the YouTube there. So with that said, I'm gonna let everybody go. I'm gonna get prepared for this. My little girl is calling me now, so it's perfect. All right. So any questions, email me if you want to keep seeing the build. I think there's a chat there too. So if you want to ask me a question that's more commercial or hip hop related, I guess you can ask me there. Right. Since I don't be taking any questions like that here because I just want to focus on what you need, not what I'm sharing or anything like that. But definitely check that out. So the link is there. I'll be there in a half hour. All right. Peace.